First, some good news. The two water bombers and the bird dog that were planning to come from Ontario and then had a bit of a delay yesterday are expected to arrive here later today. I actually heard from Premier Ford today. I sent him a message to say thank you for taking the call from Newfoundland and Labrador. He immediately called me back, recognizing that there's serious forest fires here in St. John's and, of course, as he said, across the country. So I'm very thankful to have friends like Premier Ford who are answering the call at this very difficult time for Newfoundland and Labrador. In addition to that, Canadian Armed Forces will be doubling the number of wildland firefighters that they are going to deploy. You may recall originally there was 40, so now they will deploy 80 here to the province. We will welcome 40 of these firefighters this afternoon, and the other 40 will be here tomorrow. These firefighters are going to be working on the hot spots in and around the various communities, of course, when it is safe to do so. As for the details on the fires, again, Mother Nature continues not to cooperate with us, and crews again are up against the same hot temperatures and high winds throughout the day that they faced over the weekend. In the Kingston fire, firefighters and heavy equipment are continuing to work today to expand the fuel break on the southern edge of the fire, which is near Salmon Cove and Victoria. Another potential fuel break location is being evaluated on the northern edge of the fire near Ochre Pit Cove. Yesterday, of course, Ochre Pit Cove was an extreme worry, but the good news there is it did not make it to Ochre Pit Cove last night or yet today, so continue to count our blessings where we can. A fuel break was partially constructed along the Clifty Pond Road this past week, but extreme fire behavior and rapid fire growth forced crews to relocate farther north for their safety reasons. This partial fuel break did help slow growth of the fire, so those fire breaks are working. The water bombers are focused on the northern edge of the fire near Western Bay today. Helicopters will continue to assist with fuel break construction, bucketing spot fires in and around homes, and transporting crews and firefighting foam to the fire. There are about 50 firefighters on the ground today, along with local fire departments that work on structure protection. Again, the first 40 of the 80 firefighters from the Canadian Armed Forces will begin arriving today. There was minimal growth reported overnight. The fire has grown to over 5,200 hectares, but where you look at the rapid expansion over the course of the week, that actually is a good number that I think we should be happy with and thankful that the work is starting to pay off. No reports of additional structure lost overnight at this time. The Holyrood fire is classified now as under control, and it remains at 22 hectares with no growth reported. There's minimal fire behavior observed, and the fire remains fully contained with hose lines. Crews are working with support teams from local fire departments with water supplies to handle any hot spots in this area, and search and rescue continue to search and scan for hot spots. The Martin Lake fire does remain very active. There has been some growth, and it's up to 265 hectares now. Again, crews are having a challenging day with high temperatures and winds at 30 kilometers an hour, gusts up to 50 kilometers an hour. With that fire, crews are working to keep it pinned to the western edge of the lake, and construction continues on fuel breaks between Martin Lake and Great Rattling Brook. Water bombers, air tractors, and bucketing helicopters are working to keep continuous suppression to the northern edge of the fire, holding it back and allowing crews to work on the fuel break. Given the conditions we see there today, there is an increased potential for the fire to spread towards Route 360 today. And as we've been monitoring all week, there is an increased possibility that that highway may need to be closed. We are continuing to closely monitor this and again make sure that everybody on that peninsula is aware and should have been aware throughout the course of the week that that can close, and we will of course give as much advance notice as we can to individuals in that area who use that highway. So if you are in that region, we ask that residents limit unnecessary travel on Route 360 to be aware that the situation could change at any time. Moving to Labrador, the fire, which was 20 kilometers south of Goose Bay, did not grow overnight and remained less than 3 hectares. 2 bucketing helicopters and ground crews from Happy Valley Goose Bay are working on that fire today, and the high-capacity helicopter that we spoke about yesterday from Manitoba is expected to arrive in the province later today. I'm sure all of you have heard and seen pictures about the fire now that started at Thomas Pond, which is near Paddy's Pond. I very much anticipate people have seen pictures being in a high population area. I've gotten pictures from friends and family as well. who are driving on the highway. The fire is rapidly growing, and it is now about 1 kilometer from Paddy's Pond. If you can see there where it says new fire, obviously that's the fire we're talking about. So it's moving towards Paddy's Pond right now. The fire there, as you can see, the break there on the page on the map will be transmission lines. So there was a chance that we would have had to cut the power to those transmission lines so we could dump water on non-electrified assets. The fire quickly moved past the transmission lines, which good news that we didn't have to cut the power. Bad news that the fire is moving that fast. So I want everyone in that area to recognize and realize that there are potential power interruptions as we go through this, either NL Hydro having to cut the power so water can be dropped, or potential smoke that could interfere with the transmission lines as well, which will be out of our control, of course, with the exception of all the work that the firefighters will be doing in that area. Just to be clear, there's no imminent danger to anyone living in the surrounding communities right now. No one on the other side of Paddy's Pond, but of course, we ask, this is really news that we just received in the last 10 or 15 minutes before this, so it's important for everybody to realize that this can change and to continue to monitor government channels. I've spoken with Mayor Bent and I've spoken with Mayor Breen and advised both of them that we'll be available to work with them and to answer any questions that they have with regards to this fire. There is a bomber right there on the site right now and another one on the way. And we'll continue to look at our assets over the course of the next little while to make sure that they're deployed appropriately. No imminent danger on the Trans-Canada Highway right now, but the RNC are headed that way, if they're not there already, to do traffic monitoring if necessary over the next little while. There will be evacuation order if it's not issued already and the people in this area will certainly be familiar with what I'm talking about. The industrial area adjacent to Akita, the hangars where there are float planes in that area, the forestry office, and we are examining right now the risk to Cochrane Pond Park and Country Ribbon and cabins and cottages in that area. So please, I guess this is notice that there is an alert that there could be potential further evacuations in that area. And, you know, as with the other parts of the province, please get ready to leave on a moment's notice. Pack up what you potentially can need, take what you need from your home, and safety first. So we will continue to monitor that situation, obviously, very closely in the next minutes and hours and throughout the day. Minister Haggie, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you. I should know by now. Thank you very much, Premier. Good afternoon. My role today, I think, is to highlight some of the financial assistance details that we developed with our program. And the agency that will deliver these financial assistance packages will be the Red Cross. And they'll be providing those to anyone who's been evacuated from their primary residence, i.e. their permanent home, due to wildfire. Starting today, through the Red Cross, we will be distributing one-time emergency financial assistance of $500 to each household ordered to be evacuated from their primary residence by the province or municipality due to a wildfire this year so far. These evacuation orders include the area of Burnt Point, Gull Island, Northern Bay, town of Salmon Cove, Okapit Cove, Perry's Cove, Kingston, the sections of Holyrood that were mentioned in both evacuation orders, and the unincorporated area of Western Bay, the town of Small Point, Adams Cove, Blackhead, and Broad Cove, and Musgrave Harbour, town of Badger, the town of Small Point, Adams Cove, who were evacuated in the previous order of May 7th. Our aim is to make this process as simple as possible. There are 3 ways that you can apply. You can call 1-800-863-6582 between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. 7 days a week. You can visit on the website www.redcross.ca/2025 Newfoundland wildfires with no spaces, or you can register in person at one of the reception centres. It's important that people have to be registered to receive this final this financial assistance, and they have to complete that process to be eligible. The specific details will be included in a public advisory, which, if not already issued, will be issued very shortly. The eligible residents will receive this money as soon as possible, and it will be either electronic funds, a prepaid card, a check, or alternate arrangements as required. I suspect the first two would be the quickest and easiest for the majority of individuals, but it's up to you depending on your circumstances. Red Cross volunteers will be available to assist people with the process at the Carboneer Academy Reception Centre. So look for the volunteers and they'll help you there. One last important number is that we have a new number for the Canadian Red Cross. That will replace the 729 number, which in actual fact is a little cubby hole on the side of the Provincial Emergency Operations Centre. This is now the number to ring for assistance. It is 1-800-863-6582. These numbers will all be in the public advisory, and we hope to make this as smooth and as stress-free as possible, bearing in mind the levels of stress that people who are in the evacuation centres must be feeling. I am not in that situation and have really no way of imagining it, but we are thinking about you and we are trying to help in the ways we can. So again, please stay strong, be kind, and stay safe. Thank you, Premier. Back to you.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Dempster.
Thank you, Premier. Good afternoon, everyone. Back to, I'm going to say May, when fire season kind of really got underway relatively early. There's a question that from time to time comes to me. We've endeavored to answer it a number of times, and I'm going to raise it again today because just in the past couple of days, I know it's really difficult when folks are seeing the smoke and seeing the fires, and they continue to say, why are all our water bombers not in the sky at daybreak? So there is a number of factors that determine water bomber timing. It is the size of the airspace that they're flying over and a pattern of fire behavior throughout the day. They need to ensure suppression is available at the time of the most heightened activity, often early morning. The fire is not as bad as you get into noon or early afternoon. Missions are timed to allow consistent coverage over the maximum active time. The incident commanders are trained in fire risk and behavior and deploy assets in a means to be most effective. And the Premier started the media availability today referencing the incredible work that our team in forestry is doing. I've seen firsthand over the last couple of months how they are professionals to the very core. And so I know it's difficult, but you know, our folks are using science, knowledge, a tremendous amount of skill and experience. And so we leave the timing to the experts of that. I just wanted to clear that up. To those gathered here today, you may smile when I say I want to remind Newfoundlanders and Labradorians that the province is under a fire ban. Why am I doing that when we have been here day after day after day saying the province is under a fire ban? I left yesterday and receiving pictures and emails from Central, from the Avalon, from the coast of Labrador, of folks that were having fires. It's reckless, it's careless, and I want to remind people and I want to encourage you that if you have information related to people that are starting fires, to contact our Resource Enforcement Division at 729-2192. False information, I'll close with fuels fear. Please ensure again that you are not feeding into the anxiety that people are feeling right now in a very real way by spreading rumors or sharing false informations. Updates are issued via the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador social media accounts and website, as well as the Department of Forestry. We are doing our best, our utmost, to keep you informed in as timely a manner as possible. Stay safe, everyone. Back to you, Premier.
Thank you, Minister. Okay, thanks, everybody. Any questions for today?
The power lines, that's the main power line going into the city, if I'm not mistaken.
That is one of the power lines for sure going into that part of the city, yep.
Yeah, so how, that would be a big deal if
Yes.
that were to go down, essentially, right?
Yeah, so that's why it's very important to make sure the assets are available to focus on this fire right now. And they're doing everything they can, of course. Like I said, we did not have to, or NL Hydro did not have to cut the power because it moved beyond the power line. So we're away from that right now, but obviously continue to make sure we monitor it now as the water bombers get to that part of the province.
At any point in time, was Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro asked to de-energize one of those lines?
It was active discussions right before we came here to do this briefing about whether it was going to be done or not, and literally while we were talking before we came down here, we got word that the fire had moved beyond the transmission line, so we didn't have to make that decision.
In a hot, dry day, will you have to pull crews from the fire given the extreme weather conditions and fire behavior again?
I mean, Jamie can speak a little bit more about that, but I mean, they have been pulled over the last few days due to, they're getting into a week of work now as well, and as you said, in very, very unbelievably hot conditions. So I anticipate that there's certainly a chance of that.
Yeah, I know it's dangerous work anyways, but what kind of things do you kind of factor in when you have to
Yeah.
pull people?
You go ahead. Yeah.
Thanks. So, as Premier said, we've taken them off sometimes this week. Today figures to be a more challenging day from a suppression perspective based on wind speed in particular and temperatures. You could foresee a similar thing happening this afternoon, later in the afternoon. But right now, firefighters are still in communities and doing structural fire protection to try to keep structures that are intact.
Yeah, and Julie, what kind of factors do you look at when you're saying I'm going to pull somebody out? Is fire a certain distance from them? Is it the heat? Like what makes that call?
I think it's all those things, but in particular, there's a ranking system for fires that we've talked about before, and when you get to the higher levels and the higher rankings, the fire's very unpredictable, and that's certainly when we would pull people off the line.
Can you speak to, if Route 360 has closed, contingency plans, and looking for, medical transportation, things like that?
Yeah, so those contingency plans are certainly in place, and I think it was 2022, we've gone through a situation there, so we've been through how to deal with those communities on that peninsula being isolated. So there's certainly those plans are in place. And just, sorry, and, it could be air assets, it could be boats going back and forth between the Burin Peninsula and the Canagra.
Yesterday we talked about increased communication because people want to know if their homes,
Mhm.
cabins, any sort of buildings will be lost. What's the plan to notify people? How will that happen for those who have been affected? Is there a process, and can you describe it?
So, I mean, just that's an example of what people were asking yesterday is, why aren't the water bombers in the air sooner in the morning? And why aren't they there for longer? I mean, that was one specific question that we want to provide members of, the affected members most importantly, and then members of the province as well. In terms of how and when they'll be notified, I mean, we're not at the stage yet where we're even close to being able to identify the structures that have been lost in the CBN fire. So, as I said yesterday, we convened, we struck a cabinet committee. It's not a full committee of all cabinet, but a cabinet committee to continue to monitor next steps going forward. And that committee is meeting, or if they have not already met today, to talk about medium-term steps. Certainly, as I said yesterday, individuals will not have a home to go back to, and we need to help them find where they're going to remain and live in the medium term. And one of those things I think they will look at is potentially with mental health supports is how do we gather the information and convey it to not only people that have lost their homes, but people whose homes are still standing and their neighbors have lost their homes, or they've lost, community centers or town halls or whatever it may be. People have lived there their whole lives. Their communities are going to be changed, no doubt about it.
As to, in a little bit more basic terms, why it is that it's not possible right now to assess whether this house is burning, this house is. Could you kind of just explain to people why that can't be done? Because I'm getting a lot of questions about why that can't be done.
Yeah, I'll say quickly, and then Jamie can. I mean, the danger of actually getting in there and seeing it, and the smoke and heat the smoke is preventing seeing what's been lost or what hasn't been lost. I would say that's the number one factor.
The only thing I'd add to that is we've seen examples where properties that are very close together, one unfortunately is impacted and the other is not. And so it's very difficult. You can't generalize at this stage to say because the fire burned in a given area that all the properties in that area would have been impacted. So we're certainly sensitive to that as well.
Like if anyone had a chance to visit Adams Cove, I did after the first fire back in May. Like, it was incredible that one home was completely unaffected and their lawn was fine and it was green, and the next one was burned to the ground in ashes and not even the chimney left. So to Jamie's point, you can't just say, well, the fire went through that community, because the fire is moving in and around structures, avoiding some and then burning others to the ground.
Is there anything, like, if you're in an evacuation, if you're in that large part of the Bidbrook Peninsula, you don't have to leave yet, but you're thinking about, okay, how do I keep my home safe? Is there anything, are there best practices people can do to,
Yes.
What should people be thinking about, what should people do to
So
Try.
Sure.
we've referenced it a number of times in past briefings, but Fire Smart Canada has an incredible listing of all of the things you should remove around your property, clean up. And given how this season continues to unfold, I would encourage anybody who's wondering how to keep their property safe to definitely take the time to go on to Fire Smart Canada and have a look. And as the Premier said, seemingly when he went to Adams Cove, properties that were, had well-maintained lawns and things, they were skipped over. And, so.
We took a look at that. I mean, we just talked about how they just missed the transmission lines. There was that subdivision right at the beginning of the Hollywood fire. I think you said right over the top of that.
And transmission lines.
So as
I think,
bad,
too.
yeah, so as bad as it's been, we've had some luck.
Yeah, so, you always keep, for what it's worth, to keep things in perspective. This is obviously a terrible situation that we've gone through in the past week. Say it every day, obviously, people that are out of their homes, lost their homes, don't know if they've lost their homes. But everybody is safe and everybody's alive. And so we will get through rebuilding physical structures. And the main thing is to make sure everybody, including the firefighters, continue to be safe.
I'd like to ask about the firefighters. Actually, do you have any idea, or can you give a general estimate, how many volunteers we might have? I mean, we all seem to know someone who's on the road to try to help in any way. Do you have any numbers?
I don't have the numbers of the volunteers, but I can tell you we're not short.
I mean, that leaves gaps, whether it be in workplaces. Is there going to be any compensation for maybe firefighters?
Well, I know that, for
who are-
example, anyone affected will, from a government of Newfoundland and Labrador perspective, if they're unable to get to work for evacuation purposes, if we haven't already, we'll be looking at their annual day leaves and things like that. I know that NLHS will be looking at it as well. So those are issues, again, that the Cabinet Committee will look at to make sure that people are properly, for lack of a better word, compensated or looked after in terms of any effect that the fire may have on them. Because it's not just the people who have left their homes. It is people, like you said, who are on site, who are helping out. Certainly think conversations with the volunteer fire departments and the volunteers when this is all over is going to be a worthy exercise.
Dr. Aggie mentioned earlier that there may be some compensation on people may be eligible for some kind of reimbursement. Do you have any dollars, like what amounts might be?
So it wouldn't be necessarily reimbursement. It's $500 for every home. Potentially, the reason we're doing it, of course, is people might be out of pocket, so I guess in some way it is reimbursement, but it's not dollar for dollar reimbursement. I do encourage everybody to call their insurer. Like a lot of people would have this as a standard part of their insurance policy for evacuation funds if and when they have to leave. And I would suggest all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians call and maybe add it to their policy in the event that they don't already have it or confirm that they do have it.
Do you have a number of people who have been evacuated? Because I know over the weekend some of the people from CBS Holyrood went home. Do we know how many people registered with the Red Cross?
I don't. I think the number, and I guess to the previous question, that we were approaching 3,000 people from 1,500 homes who had been evacuated to this stage.
How close is the fire right now to Ochre Pit Cove? You talked about it potentially reaching there last night and not reaching there today. How far away is it?
You know exactly where? Yep.
I don't have a specific number, but I'm trying to visualize the map. I would think a kilometer or so from Ochre Pit Cove.
How far is the Paddy's
It would be. It's only about as we came down here, it was about a kilometer from Paddy's Pond, and then so I mean, I don't know if we can bring the map back up.
On the other side.
So what would
heading northwest.
So it's heading away from the TCH. So it will be 2 to 5 kilometers from the TCH. Don't hold me to that, but that's just sort of the rough guess from looking at the map.
If that fire was to impact transmission lines, what would happen?
We'll have to have those conversations with NL Hydro as soon as we leave this media briefing to talk to them about their backup plans. But
Any indication how that fire started?
No, no.
Where do the firefighters come from? Do they have to come from another fire,
Which firefighters?
Yeah, so just to fight the fire in Patty's Pond, where do people come from, just to explain that?
So the air assets?
And everybody.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, we have 4 water bombers, so they'll have to be moved around throughout where they are, through where they were this morning.
Does that provide for the complication? I'm sure you'd love to have them still at CBA.
Yeah, absolutely, but as we've said all week, this is why we are asking people to be extremely careful. I don't know how this fire started, but if it was carelessness or negligence by an individual, now look at the effects that it's caused.
So is there any plan to ban people from hiking, camping like Nova Scotia and New Brunswick have, given that?
Look, it's very difficult to do that here in Newfoundland and Labrador in wooded areas, so I don't know how you ban people from their homes. That's just going to compound the problem in terms of evacuating people who live in or near woods. We felt that taking the steps with the fines will put pressure on people to be careful and to not abuse the privileges that we have in this society. So that's where we are right now.
Do you have enough pressure right now?
You know, I don't. I think it's the right thing to do right now, and we need to continue to make sure we do everything we can to get the message out there. And I don't know if extra fires popping up in the St. John's area will send a louder message and a clear message, and I certainly hope it does. Again, we're talking about an extremely small percentage of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, not, 99.99% or more understand, follow the rules when the fines were $75, let alone when they're $50,000. So we are targeting that very extreme small percentage of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians that may be breaking the Forestry Act regulations.
Mr., how frustrating is it to keep reminding people about this fire ban and not having outdoor fires? And we hear again that there was, I think, 3 that the firefighters in St. John's attended to again last night.
So, when the Premier and I were in Carbonear yesterday, and you talk to some people through tears that say we've lost everything, if they've had personal loss, or people that, in terms of referencing their community, say everything's changed, nothing will be the same, and you see the despair, I'll tell you, if the people saw and heard what we did, even over a number of visits to different evacuee centers, I don't think they would be continuing to carry on. We're not saying you can never have a fire again in your backyard and do what we all enjoy doing as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. We're saying with weather indices at extreme for right now, think about your neighbor, think about the devastation and the destruction. A number of evacuations that's already been carried out. The time will come when the temps will drop, when the weather indices will go down, when we can all sit around in a lighter atmosphere and enjoy a backyard fire again. But that time is not right now.
I just want to clear up one thing when you asked about the decision to cut the power with NL Hydro, and it was an ongoing discussion. As I said, the decision was that we didn't have to make it because the fire had moved on. I don't want anyone to think that we were thinking about the decision and missed the chance. The air assets were on the way, and the decision would have had to been made depending on where the fire was and when the opportunity to drop water on the transmission lines was. So that's just to clarify what was happening at that situation.
The lines actually get turned off.
We'll have to ask NL Hydro. I mean, the decision can be made like that, of course. How long it takes for the power actually to be off the line so we can safely drop water on it, I'm not sure. Okay, thanks everyone. Stay safe.
What? Did it work? It did, yeah.